Godot, Godot, Godot. Whichever you prefer, if you want to use it to make a game, you've come to the right place. I've been making video games for more than 14 years now, and recently I've fallen in love with Godot. Godot is a great choice for many developers, and pretty beginner friendly. Also, it's open source and completely free to use. Now, you probably have a bunch of ideas of games that would be cool to make, but no matter if you're dreaming of making an FPS, a 2D platformer, or anything in between using Godot, the first step is of course to install it. Now this process might be a bit tedious, but bear with me now. We go to godotengine.org, press download latest, Godot Engine, and we're done. This is a huge advantage of Godot. It's extremely lightweight and can even run in the browser. Now you might want to unzip this folder and place it somewhere you remember, but other than that, we're ready to open up Godot. So let's double click it, and it's going to ask us if we want to look at some example projects. I'll just press cancel. Then we can press new, name our project, say first game. I'm going to place mine on my desktop under my games folder. Let's create a separate folder for first game, so hit create folder and create an edit. And here we are, a clean slate, a blank canvas. Oh, I am so ready to make this game about, well, this might be a good time to decide what our game will be about. But first, this video is sponsored by Dev Adventure. Do that. To make anything in Godot, we use nodes. If we want to make a player character, we do so by putting together a bunch of nodes. If we want to make an enemy, we do so by putting together nodes. If we want to make a main menu, you guessed it, we use nodes. So nodes are the fundamental building blocks of your game. And nodes come in many types. Some display an image, others play a sound or add physics. And we can even extend existing nodes to build more powerful ones. So in its essence, making a game in Godot is combining and extending nodes to get the result we're looking for. It's a super creative and fun process. But building everything in one big world with nodes for the player, enemies, UI, and a bunch of levels all in one place would quickly become completely unmanageable and confusing. Instead, we use scenes. Scenes allow us to bundle together nodes into reusable packages. A scene can be a character, a weapon, a menu. They can be as small as a single collectible coin or an entire level. Scenes make it really easy to focus on building one part of our game at a time, and then slowly combining them to make our game larger and larger. This is because we can put scenes inside of other scenes, which is called nesting, and allows us to take, say, a player scene, a platform scene, and a collectible coin scene, and put them all inside of another scene, say a level 1 scene. And even cooler, since scenes are reusable, we can make a scene only once and then use it all over our game. We can make many levels that all use the same collectible coin scene. And if we want to change something about our coin, we simply edit the scene and it automatically updates everywhere else. As you can see, all the nodes and scenes in our game start to resemble a tree-like structure. And that's exactly what we call it, the scene tree. And fittingly, we call the node at the very beginning of the tree the root. So now that we know a bit about how Godot works, let's start by making the most essential part of our game, the player character. Player 1.0. So let's create a scene where we'll put everything together. This is going to be a 2D game, so I'll select 2D scene. And let's rename this from node 2D to game. And even though it's empty, let's go ahead and save it. So hit Ctrl S, go under scenes, and let's save it here. And now we can actually play our game. It's not going to be very exciting, but let's try it out. So let's hit play up here or simply press F5. It's going to tell us that we haven't selected a main scene. We need to tell Godot which scene to run. I'm just going to press select current, and you can see that our game scene becomes blue to let us know that this is now our main scene. And as you can see, not much is happening here. So let's stop playing by hitting the stop icon here or pressing F8. And let's put in a player to make it more exciting. So first off, let's create a new scene by hitting the plus sign up here. And this will be our player scene. And the root node for our player is going to be what is called a character body 2D. So let's add a new node by pressing the plus here or hitting Ctrl A. And let's search for character body 2D. As you can see, this is a 2D physics body that is specialized for characters moved by script. So it's perfect for a player character that we want to be able to collide with the environment. So let's hit create. And now we can see our node here, but we can't actually see our player in the scene. So let's add some graphics. Let's add another node. I'm going to hit Control A, and let's search for sprite. And as you can see, we can choose a single sprite, or in our case, we want to create an animated character. So let's choose the animated sprite 2D. Sprites are just what we call images in our 2D world. Now, with this node selected, we can use the inspector here on the right to change properties on that node. If we select a different node, say our character body 2D, we can now see the properties on that node instead. So our inspector allows us to change things about a node. In our animated sprite 2D, we want to add some animations, and we want to give it some sprite frames, the individual frames that will make up our animation. So let's click here and add a new sprite frames. And now with this selected, we can see that it will open up the sprite frames window at the bottom. And in this window, we're going to press this tiny icon here that lets us add frames from a sprite sheet. So let's click that, go into our assets, under our sprites, let's find our knight.png. And as you can see, I've gone ahead and packed all the different sprite frames of the knight's animation into a single image. This is called a sprite sheet. It's a very efficient way of working with lots of sprites, such as when doing animation. Otherwise, we would have to create an image for each single frame, which would quickly become an unmanageable amount of files. Now, to start adding these frames in, we first need to configure the grid here. Currently, it's set to 4x4. Let's go ahead and increase this. I've created an 8x8 grid here. And as you can see, each frame now has its own grid cell. And let's just start by adding the idle animation. To do this, we simply click the frames in the order that we would like. So I'm going to go from the left-hand side here and click. As you can see, it says this to 0, the first frame. Then I'm going to click the next one and the next one and the next one. And now it goes from 0 to 3 and we'll play from left to right. We can always click again to remove. And this is how you can quickly build an animation from different parts of your sprite sheet. So I'll select these 4 frames and hit Add Frames. Now let's hit F to center our character on the screen. And I'm going to use the scroll wheel to zoom in. We can also click and drag with the middle mouse button to pan. Now our character looks weirdly blurry. That's because we're working with pixel art, which requires really hard edges. By default, Godot is going to try to do some texture smoothing to make textures look better, but applied to pixel art, that is definitely not the case. So let's simply disable this. So let's go to Project, Project Settings. Let's go under Rendering to Textures. And here on the default texture filter, let's change this from linear to nearest, which will immediately make our pixel art look crisp. Then we can select our animated sprite, and let's try playing the animation. That looks great. I'm going to increase the FPS here to 10 to make it go a bit faster. I'm also going to rename the animation here to idle. I'm going to enable autoplay to make sure it plays right when we start the game. And finally, I'm going to take the sprite here and move it up to make it kind of stand on this line. And that's it for our graphics for now. We'll add more animations later. But as you can see, we're currently getting this warning here in the scene view. And if I hover over it, it's going to say that this node has no shape, so it can't collide or interact with other objects. And this is because a character body 2D is a physics node. And whenever we're working with physics, we need to define a shape that the physics engine can work with. So let's add a new node. I'm going to press the plus sign here. I'm going to search for collision shape 2D, hit create. And here in the inspector, we can now define a new shape. I'm going to add a circle shape. I'm going to make this a bit smaller and drag it up. Somewhere around there looks fine. Now you're probably thinking, well, this is pretty far from our actual graphics, but that's totally fine. Colliders rarely need to be very precise, and it's a good rule of thumb to make them a bit smaller than the graphics if you need to. Having colliders that are too large is simply going to be frustrating when playing. So let's now rename the top node here to player. On our camera, I'm going to set the zoom here to 4x4 and simply click and drag our camera to be on top of the player. And now we can try playing our game. And there you go. We now have a player that is playing an idle animation and nothing else is happening. That's because we need to add a script that allows us to move around. Explore. World Building 1.0. So to build our world, let's begin by removing our collider here. We're going to build an actual ground for him to stand on. And let's instead add a tile map node. So let's press New Node. I'll show you with the trees here, so let's say we want to add a tree here at the top, we'll go under our tile set, and here we need to choose what tiles belong to the physics layer. Camera is scene, so control player. So in our player scene, we go under
だけど背伸びしていた ABCDEFG どの選択肢を選ぼうと失敗の方が多くってまた怪我しちゃった痛いみたいの飛んでけって思っても意味なこと頭によぎって下していつの間にか泣き出してとどめさせたらどれだけ楽だろう捨てられたいな比べられっこ比べられっことっくに知ってるよ大切なものばかりされてしまう運命なんだってだから諦めたよもう諦めた私をほっといてだけど夢に出てくるのおかしいよねちょっとだけ少しだけどありのまま